At the root of the cycle of conflict and tensions between Ethiopia and Eritrea, especially in its contemporary form, one could point to 5 major underlying causes. The first factor is the desire of the Eritrean government to have an Eritrea that is sovereign and independent while enjoying the benefits and retaining the privilege to be derived from being part of the Ethiopian body politic. The Eritrean government wants to enjoy the status of a sovereign state without the consequences and responsibilities such a status entails. In political terms, this desire manifests itself in the tendency of senior officials of the Eritrean state, notably the president, to provide a running commentary on all things Ethiopia. Both officials and social media personalities affiliated with the Eritrean state feel entitled to take positions, provide opinion, and even actively engage in Ethiopia's domestic political matters. But this goes beyond politics. The Eritrean governing class believes that Eritreans have a stake in the Ethiopian economy. This sense of perverted entitlement, a belief that what is mine and what is yours is ours, is a common trait that underlies our troubled history. Illicit, predatory, and exploitative trade practices were rampant before the 1998 conflict, and echoes of the same tune can also be heard loud and clear even today. Another problem is the tendency of the Eritrean leadership to present itself as an instrument for all forces having hostile intentions against Ethiopia. The instrumentalization of Eritrea by those who desire to destabilize Ethiopia and curtail its progress makes peaceful coexistence very difficult. Another factor we should take into account is what we can call the Isaias doctrine. The Isaias doctrine is not written down or expounded explicitly, but it has now become quite obvious as a result of consistent application for over 30 years. This doctrine assumes that Eritrea's continued statehood as a sovereign country is contingent upon Ethiopia's insecurity, fragmentation, and instability. As such, the doctrine predicates Eritrea's security on Ethiopia's insecurity. Another underlying cause of the tension between Ethiopia and Eritrea is the anomalous and unbalanced nature of the Eritrean state. In most contemporary states, state machinery and resources are deployed to advance not just security or political ends, but also economic and social objectives. Most governments care very much about improving the living standard of their citizens. Economic progress, development, and growth are priorities in most countries. Even if the ruling class does not genuinely care about these issues, an attempt is made to project a semblance of economic governance geared towards the welfare of citizens. The Eritrean state is very unique in this regard. There isn't even a pretense of the state trying to improve the living standard of its citizens. The state is not conceived as a political construct to advance the well-being of citizens. The state is taken as an end in itself. In contemporary Eritrea, citizens exist for the state. This totalitarian subsumation of the individual within the state denies individual citizens any shred of autonomy and agency. Your body, your life, your finances, and your whole being are subject to the supposed military necessity of the state as defined by the supreme leader. Normal individual pursuits in education, professional life, and career, starting a business or a family, and making everyday life choices are not possible in such a context. Society has not just been militarized, but subsumed by the state. Therefore, the state does not have to worry about expanding economic opportunities and improving living standards. The overriding concern and preoccupation of the Eritrean state is waging war. Since its independence, the Eritrean state has been involved in armed conflicts with all its neighbors except one. The Eritrean state has an overdeveloped coercive capacity and war machine. In comparison to this proficiency with violence, its willingness and ability to deploy state capacity for the socio-economic betterment of its citizens is almost non-existent. Hence, having none of the normal bread and butter economic considerations that constrain normal governments, the Eritrean government is free to pursue regional mischief as its full-time occupation. Its actions are not guided by national interest defined by the well-being of its citizens. Having to bear no burden concerning the economic and social welfare of its citizens, the ruling class is free to apply its whole energy and attention to regional intrigue and adventures. If Eritrea had a government with the slightest interest in improving the living standards of its citizens, and with a citizenry that demands and expects the government to show concern for their well-being, the way Eritrea engaged with its neighbors would have been dramatically different from what we have witnessed in the last 3 decades. This could be summed up as what is known as the Nakba syndrome by some analysts, a psychological condition of the Eritrean ruling elites that is unable and unwilling to unlearn and overcome behaviors of its guerrilla years. This has resulted domestically in an imposition of indefinite military service on the entire Eritrean society, resulting in virtual modern-day slavery. The indefinite military service, which began right after the country's independence, has driven hundreds of thousands of young Eritreans to flee the country in droves, resulting in a loss of its most useful and productive population. This wave of migration that is depopulating the Eritrean state has also been turned into a lucrative human trafficking enterprise by the very same leadership that drives away the youth from Eritrea. Externally, the exclusive military and security focus in Eritrea's conduct of foreign relations has made it impossible to explore economic and trade cooperation. This partly explains why the much-hailed rapprochement of 2018 failed to bring durable peace. The reason why most governments struggle to normalize relations with Eritrea is due to this anomalous and unbalanced nature of the Eritrean state. Normalization of relations presupposes and requires a degree of normalcy among both parties to a relationship. This brings me to the last factor that I wanted to raise as a factor contributing to the chronic tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia. This is the belief prevalent among a considerable portion of politically conscious Ethiopians that Eritrean independence was something that the Ethiopian state consented to in a manner that fundamentally compromised Ethiopia's national interest. Some critics of the way the transitional government of Ethiopia handled Eritrea's secession question the legitimacy of a transitional government with no popular mandate to make such consequential and lasting decisions on the territorial integrity of the Ethiopian state. In its extreme form, you could find a few outlier voices questioning the status of Eritrea as a sovereign and independent state. However, such sentiments have decreased over time. Ethiopians who came of age in the last 30 years have no direct recollection of an Eritrea that was part of Ethiopia. For most of the current generation of Ethiopians, Eritrean statehood is a given. The EPRDF-led government in Addis Ababa has also worked assiduously to reinforce such sentiment. Nonetheless, even many of those who accept Eritrean statehood as a given view Ethiopia's exclusion from the Red Sea as being deeply unjust and unacceptable. Efforts to stamp out such views have not succeeded. The feeling of being aggrieved by what transpired in 1993 is exacerbated by the economic and security vulnerabilities that we face due to Ethiopia's lack of direct access to the sea. This is decried as a legacy of a leadership lacking in patriotic commitment or strategic foresight. It is becoming more and more evident that Ethiopia's long-term economic prospect and ambitions would suffer greatly unless it is able to address the logistics challenge it faces right now due to its lack of a secure and durable access to the sea. A vibrant economy that can provide livelihood for a population of more than 130 million people would need durable and secure access to the sea. Without a durable and secure access, Ethiopia cannot make the economic progress that would ensure its continued progress. Ethiopia must not be locked in poverty. In the long run, a poverty-stricken Ethiopia will be an Ethiopia that will collapse under the weight of its demographic boom and economic bust. Only by creating new and equitable opportunities through sustained growth and economic dynamism could Ethiopia transcend the fault lines of poverty and conflict. Therefore, the quest for a durable and secure access to the sea is an existential matter for Ethiopia.